Hello?
Yep.
Hello, and welcome to back to my YouTube channel, Insurrection with Brenton Lengel. And I am sitting here talking with Bobby B of I'd love to say your name like that.
It,
Of
it's 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 pretty awesome.
yeah, of the 5 by 5 podcast. And he just got done watching me debate a modern day debater by the name of Smokey Saint on very short notice. I actually found out about this debate like last night and kind of agreed to do it on a whim.
That explains a bit because I think he didn't come prepped either.
Yeah.
Because I mean, and this is
Well,
something that
he prepared. He knew about the debate for a while,
oh
but
that's
yeah.
that's him prepped. Okay.
So yeah. So what are your thoughts on this? I just got done doing it. It's in my head. What did you where did you think I did well? Where I did poorly, or could have done better? And overall, what were your thoughts?
Do you want to start with like poorly or well? Because I mean, we can go.
Let's do where I did well,
Yeah.
because I have a fragile ego.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. But yeah, let's do that, and then we'll go into kind of your more critical things, so I can further sharpen my rhetorical claws against these people.
Yeah, absolutely. So you tried to keep it on topic pretty well for the first half of the debate until it kind of veered off topic into being a debate about policing. You also kind of corrected him a lot with facts. You pointed out that he didn't know what socialism was, which it's a common thing on the failed right in America nowadays to not know that. Uh, you were pretty charismatic, and it sounded a lot like even when it got a little heated in the middle of the debate, it still sounded like they were almost prepared remarks, which is really great in a debate because it makes you sound like you know what you're talking about, and the other guy doesn't. So that's
Sweet.
that's a great strategy. You didn't pause too much, and you were passionate, but you didn't get too flustered,
Yeah.
which is really easy to do when people do the 15:30 or whatever the
The
13.
1350 bullshit. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
whatever.
I hate that freaking stat. Like it is the fact that it is a Nazi
Mm,
meme, but also just like it seems to make such intuitive sense if you have no education, and
yeah.
it takes time to explain that to somebody, like just how the miscarriage of statistics are. So like it's sort of a perfect storm for racists to recruit dumb people or just
Yeah.
people that don't think about it.
Or people who just want an easy answer to whatever the problem is.
Statistics can't be racist. Yeah, freaking Sam Harris fell for that bullshit. He's a smart guy.
Is he?
Uh,
I follow his
he's.
Facebook. I would debate that one like a long
I want to
time.
debate him one of these days. Maybe after the Friedman debate, if that raises my profile enough, maybe I can get my claws into Sam Harris.
Oh,
I'd
please
love,
do.
yeah, I'd love to debate him on Buddhism because he's like slowly becoming a Buddhist, but he's really bad at it and doesn't get everything.
Well, I mean, hey, that's the building blocks of Buddhism, isn't
Yeah, yeah.
it?
Well, everybody's bad at it when they first start, including me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone's bad at everything when they start. It's a walk, crawl, one thing.
Yeah.
I had a lot of notes on like the factual stuff that was going on in this debate from
Let's hear the notes. Yeah, because
so
you sent me some, but I didn't notice. I didn't notice on the thing, so I wasn't able to bring that. And then I saw that you'd sent me some discords, and I was like, ah, shit, I could have
I,
used that.
I'm sorry, man. I was like almost yelling at my screen. I'm out here on my porch like angrily smoking a cigar as this is going on. But well, which is ironic because you were debating a smoke monster from Lost. But like the first thing that he actually brought up after your opening statement was that it sounded apocalyptic, and it's worth noting it is apocalyptic right now. We're living in like the failure of a republic because we've elected an insane game show host and we've
Yeah,
educated a population to kind of engage in like mass culture industry dreck instead of actual thought and debate in a Republican setting. Republican as in we live in a republic, not as in like the Republican Party, where there
yeah.
is no debate. There are just talking points. Uh, like, oh man, like there's so much to go over here. But like one thing I really wanted to go down on a little bit is like you guys touched on foreign policy at the beginning of
Hmm.
this. Donald Trump has done nothing but fail at foreign policy, and he never actually brought anything up that was a Donald Trump success. So I mean, just real fast here. Okay, failed in North Korea. There's no accord with North Korea. North Korea's accelerated their nuclear weapons program. Kim Jong Un is still firmly entrenched. Failure in Venezuela. Hilarious failure in Venezuela. Did you?
I'm very happy about the failure in Venezuela, which I did bring
Yeah.
up later on in the debate.
Well, I mean, thank God, because I mean, if we and this is going to be another point that I'm going to mention, if we had to invade Venezuela, that would take like 300,000 to 400,000 soldiers to do that, and we just don't have that right now. And the hilarious failure in Venezuela, you should look up. I don't know if you've heard about this, but you should look up the failed coup with the private contractors that happened there like a few months ago. Yeah, like
I've heard about that. There's I think Robert Evans of Behind the Bastards. I think he does an episode on that.
Yeah, it was hilariously bad. These security contractors tried to train an army in Colombia. They wound up getting 80 guys, and the dude who was training their army got arrested in New York on coke smuggling charges. And they live tweeted out the start of their coup, and they tried to like speedboat into Venezuela, and they got arrested by a bunch of fishermen. Hilarious failure there. Failure
all this stuff about the military and stuff. I really wish I could have had you like.
Yeah, dude, I was screaming. Like the one thing I would correct you on is that the National Guard is a part of the military structure. The mission of the National Guard when it's deployed on U.S. soil is different than a military mission. Because you're right to touch on like the mission of the military is to subdue our enemies into compliance. That's the mission of warfare. If you read, we've talked about this on the series that we're doing on Homage to Catalonia. If you read Clausewitz, the purpose of warfare is to make the enemy unable to resist your political will. Yeah. In a liberal society like we live in, the purpose of the military and the police is specifically to safeguard a society based on consent.
And I feel like, by the way, I feel like when he was talking about going in and subduing all the degenerates and shit, and I call them a fascist. Like,
I mean, that's literal fascism.
Yeah, like that. It's. He seemed to really want to use the American military and military style against American citizens, and he didn't seem to see a problem with that.
Yeah, and that's something that is kind of endemic to the right wing in general, whereas the left wants to build a society based on mutualism, consent. Typically, you get your Stalins every now and then. Don't get me wrong, kids, but the right is based on hierarchy and wants to dominate. So that's another reason that you really shouldn't be voting right. You should be voting left as much as possible. And I hate that I have to vote for Joe Biden, but
I do too. God, it's gonna kill me.
Oh, dude, like that's my birthday too, man. So I'm gonna go vote drunk.
This is my don't get COVID.
Oh no.
Yeah. By the way, this is my so let's assume for the people that are listening, because I've got a lot of radicals in my audience, which is awesome. But for like the people that think you shouldn't vote, like they don't actually see a difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I disagree with them on that. But here's why you should still vote for Joe Biden. It will hurt Donald Trump's feelings.
Yes.
Even if he wins, every vote he doesn't get will be a knife in his heart. And am I that petty? Yes. Do I hate Donald Trump that much? Yes.
And you should. And the other thing is like neoliberalism. Probably no one listening to this is a big fan of neoliberalism. Also, I'm really glad to be on this channel and to have the audience on my own podcast, because people who listen to these actually know what neoliberalism is. But it's better than fascism. And what we have right now is fascism. It's also better than the failure that we're experiencing, even on a right-wing level internationally. And something I kind of want to bring up with you is, you're going to hate me for citing Henry Kissinger, and I don't blame you. but Donald Trump is even failing in terms internationally that the right would frame. There's a great book that Henry Kissinger wrote, and I know Henry Kissinger's a war criminal. But
it's all right. A war criminal can still speak the truth. Let's hear this.
He can. It's called World Order, and it talks about how different societies have different definitions of world order, and it traces the history of the modern post-Westphalian world order that we have in the quote-unquote West, and now pretty much globally because of the westernization of diplomatic relations. And that's another level that Donald Trump is really failing on, that we that kind of got brought up in the debate. Like, he said that there's like respect for America. If you look at international polling, our approval rating in the world is at its lowest point in like 60 years.
I'm not at all surprised. Like, we abandoned an ally and let them get killed for no good reason.
Exactly. And we're weakening our military position, which was a great thing that you brought up. As much as we have problems in America with our foreign policy and our history, I'll be talking a little bit about Latin America this Sunday on my podcast and our misadventures there. But I think that you really can't argue that like having American and kind of liberal hegemony in the world isn't a better starting point for reform than having like Chinese hegemony in the world,
Yeah.
which is what's happening right now. The Pentagon actually just released a report this last week that says China is starting to surpass us militarily.
Which would make a lot of sense. And if I were China, I would be seizing on this opportunity.
Oh, they are, absolutely. I'll tell you a little story off stream. I don't want to use my service as like as a cudgel, but like look at what China's doing in Africa, look at what China's doing in the Middle East, and look at what China's doing domestically. The minute that they get like 5 aircraft carriers, we're not the superpower anymore.
Shit.
Yeah.
Well, and this is the thing, because so like I've got a lot of people who are, Sinophiles probably in my comments, and like Caleb, my friend Caleb, very complimentary of China, and I am not going to do like the bread tube thing where I denounce China as fascist. Like I've got issues with China, but China's a big country.
It is.
And they've done some horrible things and they've done some wonderful things. And like, it's one of the oldest cultures in the world. And I'm still pissed at them over Tibet.
As you should be.
I'm not even a Tibetan Buddhist and I'm mad about that shit. but at the same time, I don't want to fan these like anti-China flames. And suddenly nobody wins if the United States fights China.
Well, that's true. Well, we would all literally die because both of us are nuclear superpowers. So the world would end. Yeah.
And also like the American military is just not, I think they'd win, honestly.
We'll get back to the debate in a second, but I do want to hammer on something on that real quick. And that's something that I think Smokey would probably agree with, and that he was kind of arguing, where he's talking about American hegemony and Trump like kind of sticking it to the rest of the world. We don't win and we don't establish hegemony just through naked military force. Yeah, that doesn't happen in history. Like the last guys to try that would be like, I guess, Hitler in Europe. If you go back further, the Habsburgs tried it in Europe. It doesn't work anymore. We win through coalitions, and by abandoning our coalitions, that's another reason you shouldn't vote for Trump if you care about America, because he's abandoning our coalitions and significantly weakening us. Yeah,
which, by the way, I'm pretty sure was Vladimir Putin's plan. Like if you look at what the Russian government has been doing over the past, and again, like Putin, I don't want war with Russia. No. Putin it freaks me out because he's like a creepy vampire, like who looks exactly the same as he looked when he took over the country when I was in frickin' high school. But he's smart. He's like a real leader.
Yeah. Well, he is. Even if he didn't plan it, it couldn't work out better for him, which is, again, another reason not to vote for Donald Trump. And a highlight of his international failure is the relative rise of Russia vis-a-vis us, when Russia's entire economy is the size of Texas.
That hurt.
And I'm sorry, brother. They're making us look foolish because we keep electing right-wing failures. And if you look back at my entire lifetime, right? Yeah. You have nothing but failures on the right. I was born at the tail end of Reagan's presidency. And with him, you get like massive failure and drug epidemics from his failed policies in Central America. You get lucky with the Soviet Union falling through their own mismanagement instead of Reagan's actual policies.
Well, they had a Chernobyl.
They did. They did. Well,
when you blow up a nuclear reactor and you lie about it, like that's you're gonna have some fallout. I hope. I know there's gonna be like some tanky in the comments who's like, "Comrade, I love you, but stop lying about Chernobyl. Don't accept the HBO line." And I'm just like,
wait, is that like a thing?
Oh, I'm sure. I don't know. Like a lot of my audience is also Caleb's audience, and Caleb's got Tanks in his audience. And by the way, Tanks, as long as like you don't like deny genocide or something, I'm perfectly happy to have you here because I genuinely appreciate the perspective. Like even though even though Stalin betrayed the anarchists and Trotsky betrayed the anarchists and but I'm not mad about that, and I understand that there are people who are not an anarchist type personality, but still want socialism and some form of equality. And I think that it's only good when we see things from each other's eyes and collaborate on like building a better world, as long as we avoid the gulags and the purges and the famines.
and I'm definitely willing to have that conversation with whoever. Hit me up at Mustache Bob 2 on Twitter or whatever. A couple more international.
Tell me he's being undialectical.
Yeah, please,
In fact,
please,
just
please.
just go down his Twitter mentions. Just be like, "You're being undialectical, comrade," and then the next day, "You're
I,
being undialectical, comrade."
I dare you because I will literally hit you with my copy of Hegel. Um, uh, a couple of foreign policy points before we get to like the domestic thing, which was the meat of this. Uh, Donald Trump hasn't ended a single U.S. conflict overseas. We're still in Syria. We're still in Iraq. We're still in Afghanistan. We're still doing all the drone campaigns.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which he kept saying he would end, and oh no, he
yeah,
didn't, because that's
and
ending things are hard and complicated.
and Smokey mentioned the assassination of Soleimani.
Mhm.
Soleimani was a legitimate bad dude. Like,
Yeah, I would assume so, but that
yeah,
was still stupid.
yeah, it was stupid because we did it without informing the Iraqi government. We did it on another country's soil, and we made the whole Middle East less stable and pissed off the Iraqi government, who controls whether or not we're legally allowed to have troops there. And there was retaliation, which he denied. There was the Iranian missile attack on one of our bases.
Oh, I
Where,
forgot about that.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot. It's hard to remember all of this stuff, man. But like a bunch of U.S. soldiers got serious brain damage from that, which Trump then denied.
Oh,
And you know,
I
if
don't
you
need. I don't need to hear that. I feel
I'm
bad.
yeah, I'm sorry, man. But
No,
like if
that's
you're
all right.
but if you're a right-wing dude listening to this, unlikely, but if you are, like he doesn't care about the soldiers, which is like the one value that the right is supposed to have.
Yeah. No, he
Oh,
fucking doesn't. He didn't care about the $100,000 bounty on their heads
oh.
from freaking Vladimir Putin
It was good to know that I was worth 100 grand. That was kind of nice.
to the
But
Russians.
yeah, hey man, to anybody, it's kind of cool. But
Yeah.
he also mentioned Nigeria. By the way, like Nigerian separatists are celebrating his remarks in Nigeria, and his remarks like destabilize Nigeria, which again makes us weaker and hurts the global economy. So like his foreign policy, abject
Garbage.
failure. Yeah, and then again, Obama's wasn't perfect by any means, but he got the Iran nuclear deal, which brought Iran into an international order and prevented them from getting a nuclear missile, which
Yeah.
is very important for a long conversation we can have about the great power conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia sometime.
Yeah.
But
Well, and also just the fewer people have nukes, the better.
yeah,
We really need to just get rid of nukes entirely and destroy the ability to create them. But
yeah,
like now it's just non-proliferation.
yeah, that's kind of the basis that we're at.
Did
And
you hear, by the way, that the code for the nuclear launch at one of our sites was like 00000
yeah,
for like 40 years or some
dude,
shit?
I've known that. The only like a bunch of Air Force generals have also been fired in the last couple of years
Uh-huh.
because of like gross misconduct, who were in charge of like nuclear missiles. Like
Yeah.
one dude was getting drunk in Russia, another dude was paying for strippers on his government travel card. Like it's disturbing, and they still run on not like floppy disks, but like the big floppy disks.
Yeah.
Like
It's insane. If they weren't playing with nukes, I'd almost be cool with that because it's like, oh, generals are human too. But
but
they're
if I did
fucking
that,
off
I
at
would,
work like I was fucking off at work.
well, if I had done that, I would have been in jail. But
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
but
Yeah, they got away
but
with it.
but like, oh yeah, and the Ukraine bit. I'm looking at my notes here. I'm sorry, kids, but like the Ukraine bit. You were right. What Hunter Biden did was 100% legal. That doesn't make it moral, and that's just like another failure of the right-wing system. At the same time, Donald Trump's organization rents out space to China's national bank, rents out office space. So he's directly profiting from that. He's stolen like $140 million, I think is the count. You can go to trumpgolfcount.com and
Mhm.
see how much money his golf trips have cost us. He's paid his own resorts almost $140 million for him to golf. His kids constantly profit off of his administration. I'll take 10 Hunter Bidens over one Ivanka Trump. And that's just
Yeah.
the one kid. So
You know what you should do is you should debate one of these people, like maybe go up against Maddox or something.
I would absolutely love to.
I would like to get you back because you're fucking smart as hell, and like I think you'd be very effective. Like so
Yeah.
I'll maybe mention it to James that he should find you a debate.
Yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely love to. I guess that kind of ends my notes on the manifest and multiple failures of Donald Trump's foreign policy.
Yeah. So really quickly, by the way, before
Yeah.
we move on to my failures and the ways in which I am inadequate, I'm so sorry, mother. Like,
knock out 50 push-ups, all right?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Before we move on to it, I wanted to ask you about my opening because I wasn't sure about doing it, but it felt right, so I did it anyway. And that I started with the quote from Nichiren Daishonin about when a nation becomes disordered. And
Yeah,
like,
I like that.
okay, good. And you were connecting that with like the fucking wildfires in California
Yeah.
and everything. So Nichiren Daishonin, he wrote that in 1290, and I really chopped it up to make it make sense to a modern audience.
Yeah.
Because he's talking specifically, like he talked about losing the correct teachings. Like this is very much a Buddhist thing where he's citing Buddhist scripture. But if you look through like the superstition of the day, and you look through like the fantastical language by which he is describing these disasters, like he has perfectly described what is happening under freaking climate change
Yeah.
and under this leadership that we've had. And it's, the United States has never been a Buddhist nation explicitly, but without getting too religious on this whole thing, the law Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, which might also be described as an injury to one is an injury to all. As we forget about the fact that we are connected to this world, that we are not separate from it, we are not beings that are here for a trip between cradle and grave, but we are in fact the earth peoples like an apple tree apples. And the further a country drifts from that, and the more we think of ourselves as individuals that can gain at the expense of other individuals in our environment, the more likely a nation is to be disordered. So I think Nichiren Daishonin he'd really touched on something in frickin' 1260.
Yeah. Well, you're also touching a little bit on like the Western quote unquote concept of like a social contract and realizing that we are part of a whole, and we do live in like a social contract society right now. We live in a country where the Constitution says that one of the highest duties of the federal government is to promote the general welfare. And if you look back at history, even before 1290, you look at like the fall of the Roman Empire, you see disordered leadership like you're talking about. You see very rigid hierarchical leadership that can't adjust. You see societies that typically tend to become less tolerant over time that wind up falling. There's a really cool book by the lady who is the Tiger Mom. I can't remember her name right now, but it's called Day of Empire, where she traces that. And also you see societies try to replicate themselves instead of adjusting to new realities. And that's one of the great failures of the Trump movement and the general failed right-wing movement in the United States, is that they're trying to replicate an America that never really existed instead of adjusting to current reality, like current climate change, current international affairs, current economic problems. Like the whole conversation about like domestic policy, like, yeah, it is apocalyptic. And the solution that we have with the failed game show host president is to replicate a mythical 1950s America that didn't really exist in the way that they say it did. And that
know what's so weird? And this is sort of like the concept of like hyper reality, and maybe even touches on like simulacra and simulacrum. And I haven't read any of this shit, but I've absorbed some of it through osmosis. I really feel like they're tricked by advertising.
Yes.
I think they want the magazine ad life.
They do. Well, part of that, and we've talked about this before, and I talk about it a lot on my podcast, but you're talking about Baudrillard, and reading Simulacra and Simulation is a fucking slog, and you can tell Baudrillard thinks he's like really smart, and it gets annoying, but he's French, so what are you going to do? And it's also Adorno and the culture industry. And when you have people who get their entire culture from industrialized products that are designed to boil down to the basest emotional reaction, you tend to get movements like the one that we're talking about, where they do want the magazine ad life. They want to live in the suburbs from Mad Men. They want to. They've never read Our Town, so they don't know the angst of that. I've never seen it.
By the way, when we were talking about like small town America, he had a very idealized version of it, and
I wanted to talk about that actually. The UN put out a poverty report about America. I think it's about 2 years ago, and you can look it up. It's the Special Rapporteur's report on poverty in the United States. He found, this UN official that came over, found that the United States had third world levels of poverty in rural America. And if you look at a lot of rural areas, they have higher per capita crime than urban areas. And It's a national problem that
Yeah.
results from failed right-wing economic policies on a national and state level. So
Well,
even if
yeah,
go ahead.
people, no, dude, like people don't understand this. Like one of the things that they think, and this is the weirdest thing. Like, do you know why people are afraid of hillbillies? Like,
Because they see
yeah,
Deliverance.
but what sparked Deliverance? The fact is that like before there was welfare,
Yeah.
like freaking gangs of hillbillies would rob people who were driving through the mountains. Because what the hell else are you going to do if you
Yeah.
don't have like an economy, especially if it's been, your mountain town has been built around like a freaking one of those coal mining company towns, and then the coal mine runs dry. What the hell are you going to do? You're going to become a robber.
Yeah, I mean, I come from Irish Sicilian stock, so I've got a long family history of that.
Holy shit! I was freaking. I was raised in Sicily the first 2 years of my life.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I was born. My father was in the military. He was an O4 in the Navy, flight surgeon, and I was born on a base in Naples, Italy, and we lived in Sigonella, Sicily, I
Oh,
think it was.
my family's from Syracuse.
Oh, I've been back there once since,
Yeah.
like when I was a teenager. We went back. I fucking loved it. I have such an affection for the Italians. I actually tried to regain my Italian citizenship after Trump, which
Yeah.
I might still go back to because I was a dual citizen. And like when I called the ambassador, he was like, "Well, yes, you were born on Italian soil, but you have to have at least one parent who's an Italian citizen." I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I'm stuck with Trump."
Yeah,
Um,
I was seriously looking at La Legion Étrangère for a minute. So
yeah. But like it was like I wanted to go back to, and I understand the irony of fleeing to Italy to escape fascism.
yeah, I mean, but I mean, like the government in power there. I mean, they do have fascists in their government right now, but like
Yeah.
their actual government is so much further to the left than our government is right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. And also Soka Gakkai, my Buddhist organization, is huge in Italy.
That
Like,
makes sense.
yeah, they made some because the Italians were passionate people.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Oh, but but
So I'm sorry, continue.
they also have a higher workforce participation rate than we do, which is something that doesn't get talked about a lot when we talk about Trump's quote unquote great economy. If you look at workforce participation, which is the actual percentage of people relative to population that are working,
Hmm.
it peaked in 2000 and it hasn't recovered to that since. It peaked at about 69% of the population that was working,
Hmm.
and the first Bush recession tanked it, and then it just kept tanking over the years. And now we're at about like 62%. I haven't checked it today, so I could be wrong. Drag me if you guys want, but like the actual percentage of people who are working is still really low, and real wages are still lower than 1978.
Yeah.
Poverty is actually still higher than 1979 and 1980 because Reagan drove up poverty and Clinton and the dot-com boom kind of drove it down, but it never got back to the low that it was under the Great Society, which is another reason that you don't want to vote for Republicans. I don't care if you're the most Marxist-Leninist, most anarchist bro in the world. Like, you have a choice between middling Democrats or bad Democrats, and you have a choice between economic failure and fascism.
Yeah.
And that's your binary choice right now because the Green Party's not going to win. The
Nope.
the Libertarian Party shit
The
sure.
socialists aren't going to win.
No, is there even a? I mean, I guess there's CPUSA. I guess
Well,
DSA.
you would CPUSA and DSA, yeah, but there's also the party for the PSL, Party for Socialist Liberation. They put somebody up every year.
Yeah.
It was really funny because I
Chief-
got the PSL confused with the PLO. I thought it was the Palestinian
Very different parties, I imagine.
Liberation Organization. I was like, yeah, I'm fine with the PSL. I like Palestinians.
But I mean, you can work all you want, and I do actually in Florida to try to build a left alternative to what the Democratic Party is right now.
Mhm.
But right now, you have a binary choice.
Yeah.
And we have to do a lot of reforms.
And this is really important to all of those fucking idiots out there who are accelerationists.
Mm.
Never go full accelerationist. You You think what's going to happen is if you vote for the Republicans and vote for the Republicans and vote for the Republicans, and they keep putting in their draconian thing, they will beat down people to a point where people have nothing to lose and will throw themselves into machine gun fire for you. That's not how revolutions happen. No revolution in history has ever happened because a people is so cowed by their system that they have no other choice. What happens is people lose hope, and they resign themselves to whatever they are given. Revolutions happen when this happens, when there is a period of growth and upward mobility that is suddenly checked by a sudden, sharp downturn. And in fact, that would mean probably that right now the U.S. is at a closer revolutionary point than it's ever been in history. But also don't fucking do anything because we don't have the structure to actually pull any of that shit off.
Well, and there's such a developed military-industrial security state that you're not going to pull off a 1918 revolution in this country. You're not going to pull off a French Revolution. No one's going to storm the Bastille. Like we don't have a Bastille in this country, but like you're not going to
yet. We don't have a Bastille yet. Just wait.
Yeah, fair point. But you're not going to storm Fort Bragg and seize all the weapons. It's not happening. And at the same time, you also have to guard against failed right-wing propaganda about what is happening right now. The dude said that there's never a reason to riot. I just wrote down LOL. Yeah, there's reasons to riot sometimes, man. Like, look back at history. Look back at our country's history. This country was started on riots.
Yeah. I wanted to point out also, do you think because I was trying to explain to him, why people might be rioting and kind of going through, do you think that got through to him?
I don't think so. I think what we're dealing with right now is a culture and especially a right-wing media apparatus that
just convinces everyone that the black people are chaos goblins.
Well, no, which is like the more extreme version of that, but also that like property is paramount and more important than people. Like people watch Wall Street and they think Gordon Gekko's the good guy. People see like a business burn down and they don't think that business is insured. Why is the business burning down? They just think, oh no, the property is gone. The joke is that like the postmodern neo-Marxists are coming for your toothbrush. But like you see the same propaganda because we brought up the USSR a minute ago. At the beginning of the Bolshevik Revolution, like one of the most effective white army propaganda campaigns was that like the Bolsheviks were going to make everyone sleep under one blanket and they were going to number the women and issue them out. So we're dealing with a culture that prioritizes property in that way more than people and civil rights. Because we assume, because of the media that we consume, that America has the most civil rights in the world, when if you look at the Freedom House, which is an NGO that actually rates countries based on how liberal they are in terms of having civil rights, not in terms of being liberal, we're becoming less and less liberal every year.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. And I remember I had a bunch of people get like super butt mad at me after Donald Trump won, because they couldn't yell at him. So, they're the liberals that I was telling, this is really dumb. You should not be dancing around in fucking pantsuits to celebrate how excited you are about Hillary Clinton.
No.
Because she's a murderer. And I don't mean that in the sense that she's like did the Whitewater murder or anything. I'm talking about she supported murderous regimes and had terrible policies, but like you are super excited, so you dance around with a flash mob and a goddamn pantsuit. And I'm just like, oh god fucking damn it, we're gonna lose.
It's so cringe, and it's a kind of a byproduct of the DNC's central strategy, which has been that whole like we're going to win suburban workers versus losing like the industrial workers. And by the way, just as a point of order, he was talking about how much manufacturing is good. Manufacturing in this country, as somebody who plays the stock market, is in a deep recession and has been for years. Outsourcing increased the first year Donald Trump was in office. Outsourcing is still a thing. The Carrier plant he made a big deal out of saving is automating all of its jobs.
Well, of course it is, because a capitalist is just going to do that anyway. Like exactly. You can't stop them from automating. Why would they ever stop?
Well, we've also gone really astray in how we look at automation, because if you go back to Nixon, arch right winger Nixon, right? He was talking about how automation was going to transition from a 5-day to a 4-day work week with the same pay. and
Nice.
and now we're just like, oh well, your job is gone because we've moved so far to the right. We had that failed Reagan revolution that just kind of, and this is something that I talk about constantly. Like most of the social problems that we're dealing with right now, you can trace directly back to 1980, and and they're directly caused by right wing policy. So even in these very blue cities, where, by the way, as a little note, like every one of your right wing talkers that you listen to
Mhm.
on the YouTube or talk radio or whatever,
Yeah.
they almost universally live in blue cities. Dave Rubin, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, all of these people live in very blue cities so they can escape the mass poverty that right wingers create wherever
Sure.
they govern.
Now,
But
now I don't want to, but like we're getting into the
oh,
time, and I want to make
sorry,
sure you have time to tell me how much I suck.
you know,
So where could I have done better in the debate? Where did I miss opportunities?
so the biggest opportunity you missed was when you started talking about the riots, and the problem is that one, you let it kind of veer off into a debate about policing.
Yeah,
So it's a debate about Trump versus Biden, and Biden's going to be superior on the policing issue than Trump is. The other
yeah.
thing is that Donald Trump and his failed right wing policies have caused this unrest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of didn't mention that. And the other thing is you
Well,
let it.
no. I did mention that in my opening statement, but I should have gone back to it.
You should have. And the other thing is that the you kind of let it veer off, and that's a real danger when you're debating a right winger, like especially like a Trump supporter, is they will change the subject completely. Like if you're
Yeah.
talking about like workforce participation, they'll be like, "What about Hillary Clinton's emails? Shouldn't she be in jail or whatever?" And it's super hard to keep them on topic, but that's something to look out for in future debates.
I think it definitely is because Sargon did the same thing.
Yeah.
And the Sargon one where he veered off, like he veered off because he knew he couldn't like argue in that. And I should have, if I just wanted the win, I should have gone for that. But like what I wanted to do was really what the debate was he doesn't consider trans women to be actual women. That's his primary thing. And so the actual thing that he wanted to argue about was, are trans women women? And I was like, okay, I'm fine with arguing about that, because even though it's not within the scope of the debate, because I would rather plant an idea in his head that hopefully he will not be so dumb that he loses it. I think he'll still lose it, but that was my plan with allowing that to happen. With this one, I agree. We jumped down a bunch of weird rabbit holes. And I need to be more focused on that. The hard thing is that I got ADD.
It's too, even without like ADD, it is so hard to keep these people on topic because this guy, I'm not saying that Smokey is dishonest. Mm-hmm. The ideology itself is
dishonest.
It's dishonest, and it's based on talking points. So if the one talking point's not working, they're going to transition to a different one. But like keeping them on topic it's super difficult.
Well, I noticed that was where I was like, oh, I'm winning this, was early on when he abandoned and he agreed to pivot. Yeah. I'm like, okay, you're admitting that ground is lost. I don't know if I ripped into him enough on that, because I thought what he'd say, like, I thought he'd recognize when I brought up that we were pivoting. But I guess he hasn't watched the Destiny debates and hasn't realized that pivoting is the worst thing in a debate.
It really is. It really, really is. And like, but the problem is that like, if you don't hammer them, people who aren't like up on how debate and argumentation works are going to think that like, oh, he's proving this point really well, so he must be right about the other thing that he conceded
on. Yeah. So I think I should. It's hard to, because like by the end of it, I don't know. Smokey, I actually like, he's wrong about everything.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Yeah, but like he seemed to be one of the more intelligent and well-meaning people that I've talked to. Granted, I've talked to a bunch of fucking Nazis. So
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So, but and then of course it shows you how far this fucking white nationalist shit's gone. I think Smokey's Jewish, actually, and like he even mentioned he was at like a Jewish march, like, and he didn't realize that the 1350 thing is a Nazi thing.
Yeah. Well, fascism doesn't always target Jewish people. It just happens that Jewish people wind up being the easiest target for fascism historically. In our case, it's more our underclass is more people of color in this
Yeah.
country. So fascism in America tends to target Black and Latino people.
Yeah. By
because
the
of,
way, in your opinion, was I able to, because I was trying to show the progression of like policing in the United States and why, and yeah, that was off topic,
yeah,
which I'm realizing now. But like, was I able to get that across? Because he kind of tried to dismiss I made the general point about them growing out of slave catching organizations, and then made the specific point with the Trump DOJ
yeah,
admitting that these people like used fucking dogs on prisoners. Like
yeah.
was that point well stated? Did I make the thing, or do you think I was like too all over the place to really
So so
draw them to that?
so factually, absolutely. Emotionally, for the audience that he would bring to the table, I
Mhm.
would argue that framing it in terms of how it hurts everyone and Black people especially might be a more productive strategy.
That's a good
So
point.
yeah, so you still like police brutality still affects white people. You find a lot of examples of that. That Tony Tiampa, I think was his
Mhm.
name, the gentleman who got shot in the motel when he was complying with
Yeah.
demands, and the dude had "fuck you," excuse my language, written on the receiver of his AR-15. uh,
Oh, I remember that.
yeah. So like it hurts everybody. It just happens to target our most vulnerable people in this country, especially. So if you're debating somebody who's going to 1350 you, it's a good strategy to point out that it hurts everybody. But Black people are historically overpoliced because of the reasons that you were talking about, and
Mhm.
that it's going to hurt them especially. And so it's especially obvious when you look at people of color. But it also hurts white people because we're living under a police state. That one guy got killed because he was black bagged
Yeah.
in a town, and I was wondering like why in the United States of America, which is supposed to value civil liberties, and with a right wing that's supposed to value civil liberties and individual liberty above all, why are
You
we?
notice he didn't have a problem with that.
No, of course not, because right wingers don't have a problem with hierarchical police states enforcing their idea of morality and punishing people that they label as degenerates. So, that's another reason not to vote for the right. So,
Yeah, because
like
fucking
whenever you
fascists.
whenever you get into a detailed discussion of the results of right wing policy and right wing ideology, you're always going to come back to reasons not to embrace it because it materially disadvantages everybody. It puts us under police states. It enforces rigid hierarchies that aren't able to adapt to current circumstances. It makes countries weaker. Like, look at every country that elects like a hard right wing government. Brazil is going through serious turmoil right now because they elected a crazy fascist.
Yep.
We're going through serious turmoil because we've had Reagan, two Bushes, and two neoliberals over the last 40 years, and our country is in like free fall decline right now.
Yeah.
Thatcher killed 50% of the UK's GDP when she crushed the unions and the mines. I mean, the list. I mean, Hitler completely destroyed Germany. We're talking about Franco on the other series that we're doing, completely killed Spain's ability to modernize, and is
Yeah.
one of the
Well, yeah, he essentially reasserted feudalism.
yeah
Um, yeah, by the way, this is the Franco, like, was the freaking, he looks like a doofy school teacher,
yeah.
and he was out of his goddamn mind. Like, he was
Imagine that.
obsessed with like conspiracies about like freaking Freemasons and secret Marxists, and he carried around the severed hand of Saint Teresa de Avila, which was not actually her severed hand. Like, he carried around that reliquary with him like it was the goddamn nuclear football. Like, he had the Ark of the Covenant. He slept with it under his pillow. And like, that's the man that was in charge of the freaking country.
Yeah.
Um, Also, by the way, and this is in my movie about Durruti, because we use the hand of de Avila. Like, it's a major point in that movie because like it Durruti gets it from him and like freaking tosses it into the river and shit in the thing, because I'm kind of being a little Quentin Tarantino and
Mm.
writing a second draft on history. But that is a perfect metaphor for fascism,
Yeah.
in that you have this golden jeweled hand like on the outside reliquary. Inside it is a shriveled dead thing that is not actually even the thing it purports to be. you know. And that's really the fascist mindset, where they're obsessed with strength and the appearance of strength. They're obsessed with, all these metaphors, but really, they're dead inside, and everything they believe is a lie.
I would be shocked if Donald Trump didn't have something similar to that, but yeah, they never really changed. That's the other thing. Like the failed right over the last 100 years, something to remember, especially this November, is when hopefully everybody who's listening to this cast a vote for Biden and then showers after.
Yeah.
Trump isn't a unique phenomenon. This is the failed right-wing ideology that's been going on forever. QAnon is just updated John Birch society. Isolationism is still isolationism. Segregationism is still segregationism. They don't change. And the only way that we're going to get rid of these people is to defeat them electorally, utterly defeat them. So that's the reason that you should.
You should vote for Biden, and then you should immediately work to overwhelm the Democrats, with a Bernie-style DSA approach, because, seriously, Biden wanting to bring them back to the table is the dumbest fucking thing he could possibly do.
No, and it's this idea that politics is 3D chess, and it isn't. What politics is, and I say this a lot, but what politics is it's a knife fight in a septic tank in the dark, and it's filling up.
Yeah,
that's what politics is.
And the thing is, the Republicans understand that. They understand that it's about power, and the Democrats, it's what I said in the thing, is the Democrats have no fucking clue how politics works.
No.
So all right. So we're at time here, and I got to get back to my family. But this is a good conversation. I'm glad you did it, Bobby. Why don't you plug your pluggables? Where are we going to see you next?
So I'm on the 5x5 podcast. We're on SoundCloud right now. We're trying to experiment with maybe transitioning to a YouTube channel as well.
Yes, do that.
I'm Mustache Bob 2 on Twitter. 2 as the numeral, not like the word. My co-host is Space Rocco, SPACE Rocco at Twitter. And you can see me occasionally do a series of book reviews with Brenton on his channel.
Absolutely. And we are going to be doing the second chapter of Homage to Catalonia as soon as possible.
I can do that tomorrow. So
we'll record it tomorrow then.
Yeah.
That sounds like a blast. All right. Bobby, I will catch you later. I'm going to be putting this out. For those of you who are following, please like and subscribe. I checked. I am at 980 subscribers. I am 20 away from hitting the 1,000. So let's do this. I want to break that. I wanted to get it by the end of August. Let's see if we can get that before the end of September. Or it's the 5th now. So maybe we can get this in the next couple of days. All right. And if you do it, I'll do a poetry reading. You get to make fun of me for reading poetry.
You should read something by Lorca.
Yeah, that would be really good. I was thinking I would go with some Khalil Gibran, but
I love Khalil. I just got a
good.
I just got a copy of his collected works from 1940.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I will read some Lorca poetry going forward, and I also want to do some Shakespeare at some point because theater nerd. And I will eventually read some of my own poems as well, and they're really, the New Yorkers like them. So the New York artists that I was adopted by, they thought they were fucking cool. So I hope the rest of you do. All right. I will catch you all. This is Brent from Insurrection with Brenton Lengel and Bobby B of the 5x5 podcast signing off.